Hey everyone, another exciting show for you today. We are going to talk about real-time information that is going on. It is Monday. It is part of our expert series, and that means we bring back Greg Dickerson. How you doing, Greg?
Doing good. Michael, how are you today?
I'm doing very, very well. So, hey, I want to catch you up on something that I got yesterday evening at about 5:30 my time. So I know lots of real estate agent and brokers in my market, and one of them was nice enough to send me a report as of as of June 13th, right, was the last full day they had data from for just the Fresno residential single family home market. Just so we understand the box we're talking about, okay? And the data that comes out of that MLS and in this single report that I got talks about three factors. One is active listings. One is sold transactions closed. And then the third is pending. And the reason this is important for us to talk about is because the market is ever evolving. It is ever changing. And we talked last week, and I put out there, 11 days ago, that we could potentially see a wave of new activity. I suspected we would see a rise in listings because I figured if you were sitting on a home and you were nervous about people coming through, and then you saw a jobs number that was a 10 million surprise to the good side, you might go, oh, cool, time to let go. Unfortunately, the opposite has happened. And what I mean by that is, again, this is as of June 13th. So 13 days of June compared against 13 days of May. Listings were down 20%. So we were already low. They're lower. Transactions were down about 12 or 13%. But pendings were up 47.5%. So where I was hoping for more listings, all I got was more demand. And we got, I've never seen a rise like that in pendings. Now, the pending is not closed, and if you want to be a naysayer, I get it. But that is crazy. And what I put out a video late last night saying if this continues, prices will go up, and they'll go up spectacularly because it's supply and demand. So I was curious what you think of that. You may have some questions because you may not have seen the report, but let me stop there and see what you think.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It's all about supply and demand. I think we're seeing the same thing in a lot of markets. And I tell you what's driving it is,
Okay.
obviously with the resurgence of the coronavirus, people are kind of holding off if they were going to list and sell and have people coming through the house. So we had the protests and that, kind of put a hold on things in a lot of areas. That's still kind of going on. With the resurgence of the coronavirus, we're still in the first phase. We never got rid of the first phase. So now that we're reopening, I think we're starting to see now what we all kind of knew. It's like, if we just reopen and let everybody back out, isn't it just going to come back?
Yeah.
And, so it certainly has. And what the experts are saying is that we're not even in the second phase yet,
Yeah.
which would be like a fall, kind of a thing. China is going back on lockdown. They're gonna go on strict lockdown measures again because of resurgence. So it's coming back all over the world. As people open up and get back out there. And then of course, with everybody gathering with the protests, which I think are a great thing. We're seeing revolution across the world with social injustice and racism and things like that. But those gatherings are a problem, obviously, in the middle of the coronavirus. So that's exacerbating the resurgence of that. So I think you're seeing a little bit of that. The other thing that's interesting, record low interest rates. So that's spurring people into action.
Yeah.
On the topic of price, what's really interesting is if you go back pre-2009, as the markets were heating up, inventory levels were shrinking, buyers were out there, the prices kept going up, and it seemed like nobody cared. You could almost sell something for 20 to 30% the next week after you bought something.
Yeah.
This time, post 2009, we haven't seen that. The housing market has been red hot. We have seen values come up, but they're back about where they were at the peak of 0405 before it really went through the roof and started coming back. And we're not seeing people pay anything exponentially. We still are seeing ceilings on values in certain areas, depending on what's going on. People are just pulling back and renting. Even with record low interest rates, it broke below 3%. I think it might still be today. Now, the third thing is forbearance. Forbearance is way down.
Yeah.
So a lot of those people that were, in potential situations that might have to sell, we're seeing, all that pullback, 115,000 applications down, for forbearance and things. So there's a lot going on out there in the housing market that's really, really interesting.
Yeah. And again, I look at this every day. I mean, I talk about it, I teach it, I help people try to learn their markets. And another thing I do is I put out my goals. I track my goals weekly. And one of the things that I put out on my weekly goals, which you can go back and look at my playlist, there's like 100 of them now or 50 of them. I was writing offers out of the Fresno MLS, just like I teach. And I don't know, as soon as like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I was writing like 10 or 12 a week or something like that. I didn't write any offers last week because the market is so frothy, right? I was writing offers that make sense for me, which generally meant 10 to 20% below asking. And I was hearing back repeatedly, there's 8 or 9 offers with 7 of them being above asking, right? The supply is so low that it just doesn't make sense for my models. So there's a very good chance that if listings stay small, I won't be writing any offers this week probably, because again, it just doesn't work. And what I'm trying to figure out is, okay, my spidey senses tell me this is going to be short term, right? Because we have some cabin fever going on. We have record low interest rates. We have essentially a spring selling season that never happened. And a selling season means you have sellers and buyers.
Yeah.
We still have sellers not doing anything, but that doesn't mean the buyers aren't there. And the buyers are coming out of Class A. The millennials are buying now, and demand is through the roof. And in fact, I looked at my portfolio, I think it was Friday, and I found a triplex. It's 3 little houses hasn't performed for the 8 years I've owned it. I listed it 10% higher than I think it's worth, just to see. So, it's so interesting. And
so how's that going? Any activity? What are you seeing?
My agent actually had a birthday this weekend, so I gave her time. So I'll find out about 11 o'clock today. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah. That'd be interesting to know.
Yeah, I'll tell you next week. I mean, we'll
Yeah.
see. Because again, I don't have to sell it. I don't own any. I mean, I own it free and clear. So, whatever. But yeah, I'd like to sell it. That'd be nice. But again, it's part of me thinks it's cabin fever, right? But I don't know how long that lasts, because real single family homes, unlike multifamily, really has 2 buyers, right? It has owner occupants and it has investors. And owner occupants specifically, once the good news gets in the newspapers and online, I saw it in 04, 05, and 06, it just builds on itself, right? That was what, I think 04 was a healthy real estate year, but then 05 was unhealthy, and then 06 was like way unhealthy. But a lot of that was because people just got caught up in the moment.
Yeah. And then it shot through the roof until 09.
And until it just fundamentally didn't make any sense. And prices are still not back there. And for me, like, I sold the first house I ever bought, I sold for $260. 14 years later, it's only worth $187. That's how crazy it got. But I don't know.
So,
I mean,
it's all supply and demand, like you said, and then it's interest rates, and this is commercial and residential.
That's true.
The interest rates are key.
Yeah.
So here's the interesting thing to think about and to watch. Okay. So I've talked and I've written articles for years, going back to 04, 05, before 2009.
Mm-hmm.
The 2 things you got to watch are inventory levels and interest rates. Okay. As inventory levels rise and interest rates rise, you're headed for bad news. Now, back 04, 05, before 2009, and then that little spurt up to 2009, interest rates were in the sub 4%, right around sub 5, but occasionally sub 4% range.
Yeah.
So 5% was the threshold, and I used to say, if we get near 5% or over, it's done.
Right.
And that's what happened. We crossed 5% after 2009. The market shut off like a faucet, and everything dried up. Now we're at a point to where it's 4%, because you're looking at sub 3%.
Yeah. Crazy.
And anytime we get close to 4%, people start pulling back.
Okay.
So those are the indicators you got to watch now. Those are the thresholds. And then price is relative. Okay. Now, if you're paying, under 3%, well, that $500,000 house that was, that was $500,000 at 3.5 to 4%, at 2.5%, well, you can pay $600,000 for it, and you've got the same payment. So that's kind of what's happening. Where it used to be, people would go for the bigger house because it was the same price.
Got it.
Now it's the same house with a bigger price. So you're not seeing people, upscale and go to bigger houses. People have downsized and they're still looking for smaller houses, but the smaller houses are going up in price. So it's a real interesting dichotomy that's going out there in the economy right now. And I'm seeing house prices for some of this stuff, where I live, average homes, 2,800 to 3,500 square foot in the $750,000 range when they should be in the low to mid fives.
Wow. Yeah. Cause again, it's just interesting. Cause again, I had a friend Friday put a house on the market that was nothing special, 199, full top of the market, squeezing every penny out of current value. He was bid up to 215. He had a bidding war of like 4 people.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So in my market, you can't even get a house for under 300 grand hardly. I mean, there's almost nothing under 300,000 and definitely nothing under 200,000 unless you go out in the rural areas.
Yeah.
And I'm in Charlottesville, Virginia, so we're not in like this super high end market like San Francisco or anything. I mean, Charlottesville, I think our median house price is if it's not there, it's pushing the fours now, mid fours.
Wow. Yeah. So I think a couple of things are going to happen. First and foremost, let's realize we're talking about, 2 local markets here, right? We're not talking about San Francisco and New York. I think San Francisco and New York are clearly going to have price deterioration because people are leaving, right? But all of that demand that's leaving those spots empty is going somewhere else and they're buying, right? If you're a renter in New York or San Francisco, you can be a buyer in one of the suburbia markets, right? And I really do feel that prices could go up double digits. I mean, it just feels so unnatural unless supply comes back. And as of, 8 days, 9 days later, I could be early. I could be overexcited. Basically, I'm nervous because I've seen real estate get unaffordable before. And
yeah,
it just feels so unnatural with such low supply.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, and and it is. So real estate is hyper local. Everybody's different. Every market's different. So if you go in the middle of Phoenix, Arizona, where you've got 10,000 houses that are all identical, things might be different. You go to Detroit, there's some really hot pockets around the city, but you go city central, and you might not be able to give a house away, right?
Mm-hmm.
I read this article yesterday, CNBC, Manhattan's empty apartments, their new leases plunged by 62% in May. And, there's an exodus actually now. So we were wondering how these things would affect cities. And especially in New York, man, a lot of people are leaving more so now than ever before. You're probably going to see a lot of that in Seattle. You're probably going to see a lot of that in some of these other big cities as the virus resurges, as those things come back, as, things continue down the path that we've been. But, Manhattan's taking a beating.
Yeah. Well, vertical living is not a good thing. The city is turned off. So Broadway, the restaurants and all of that is turned off. Why pay extra for the nightlife that's not there? Your employers are telling you can work from home. And oh, by the way, let's not forget New York and California are high tax states. So why don't you just go across the border and, get a pay raise because your taxes are lower? California and New York are going to feel this for years to come, and it will be a negative feeling, in my opinion, because people are going to go elsewhere because they can work, they can keep their jobs, they can go somewhere else, better quality of life, more space. Again, space is good, and that's why I think single family homes could surprise me to the upside this year. It's really about listings. When do the listings come back, Greg? That's what I want to know is when do the listings come back? Come on, tell me that. When do they come back?
Well, as interest rates start rising and the buyers, slow down, and as we get rid of the virus, I mean, again, a lot of people just aren't moving. And, the other thing too, with the remote work, so that's, keeping people from having to move for work because more and more companies are saying, hey, you can stay where you're at. So, I think there's just so much going on right now until we get the coronavirus thing resolved and behind us. I don't think you're going to see things get back to normal in terms of the housing market and things like that. People seem to be staying put, more so now. And I don't know what that is. I mean, I guess a lot of people aren't hiring. So I've heard that over and over and over. A lot of people said, oh man, I had this job lined up. I was supposed to move. And now with the, shutdowns, the job went away. So there's a lot of that happening. So the whole economy, a lot of people think, and there was talk 2 weeks ago, right? I mean, isn't this crazy? It's week to week, day to day. 2 weeks ago, oh, it's all over. Everybody's opening back up and, we're off to the races and everything's going to be fine. And you and I are like, wait a minute, it's still going to be a good year to 18 months before you get any kind of real recovery, even if nothing else happened, just because, again, you can't go from lockdown when you haven't gotten rid of anything, you don't have a vaccine, to opening back up and expecting everything to be normal and this thing just goes away. So, there's a lot of businesses that aren't going to reopen. There's a lot that weren't able to reopen. There's a lot that aren't rehiring, even though we've got a lot of jobs and a lot of people are going back to work. You got to understand what that means. We went from like being totally shut down in a lot of major industries to all of a sudden opening back up. So that created millions of people going back to work, but there isn't a lot of traffic out there. When you go out and about the areas, it's still pretty empty out there, and we're still running on fumes in terms of where we were.
Yeah, well, I mean, let's just play this out, right? If listings stay artificial again, they were 30%, 25% low heading into this, and they're lower now. But if listings stay at that for your local market, right? Find out where your local market is for people. Go figure out how many active listings they were February 28th of 19. Go look at what they are today. I'm going to guess they're lower for most markets, excluding the big cities, Seattle, New York, LA, blah, 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 blah. And if that's true, there's a very good chance that listings stay at that artificially low level because there's no reason to move, as you're saying. That's excellent point.
Yeah.
And if that's true, prices are going to go up. They have to. Interest rates are low. The federal government is still loaning money at sub 3% for owner occupants. And man, if you would have asked me 2 months ago if real estate could go up in a shutdown economy, I'd have said no freaking way. But man, I don't see active listings jumping. I don't see it happening. And that means I'm going to buy a lot less houses than I thought.
Yeah. When there's nothing for sale, it's very difficult. And, I work with people all over the country and, investors, and they're all having the same issues with, trying to get inventory. There's just, the sellers just aren't doing anything. And, we're seeing that in the commercial and multifamily world as well, even with distress in the commercial, office, retail, sectors, hotel sectors. You're not seeing a lot of inventory come on the market.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sitting here thinking what's going to spur sellers, right? So when I think about single family homes in this market, right, there is a large percentage, I shouldn't say that. There is a decent percentage of homes owned by these big hedge funds, right? That they gobbled up tens of thousands of homes during the crisis. I wonder at what price point do they become net sellers? That's something I think about because that's a lot of inventory there, and maybe they never do.
I just checked the MLS.
Okay, go ahead.
So I just checked the MLS while we were talking. If y'all see me doing this, I'm checking things as you and I are talking because this is such real time going on. I'm looking at the market. I'm looking at the inventory. So right now in my market, Charlottesville, the city of about 65,000 people, very small geographic area, the city of Charlottesville proper. Normally we have around 100 houses to 120 on the market at any given time.
Okay.
I've been here since 2011. The most I've ever seen is close to 200 in the city. And the least I've ever seen, now this is interesting, the least I've ever seen was back in 2017.
Okay.
It was December 2017, January 2018, somewhere in that time frame.
Okay.
We had gotten down to about 20 houses on the market in our city.
Oh, wow.
19 to 20.
Okay.
When we normally keep, hundreds, right? So when I first moved here in 2011, it was a couple hundred, then it was 100, 150. It came down to that point.
Okay.
Then it went back up. So before coronavirus, we were sitting over 100 houses on the market at any given time. Okay. We're down to 50 right now.
Oh.
Then we have a bigger county that surrounds the city that has about 300,000 people. Okay. And in that, or 100 something thousand people, or something, I can't remember what our MSA is, but anyways, it's bigger. Big geographic area. Like you can drive an hour in two directions and still not leave the county. Big county.
Okay. Big county.
So normally there's 550 to 600 houses. Now this is just single family I'm talking about. I'm not even talking about condos. I'm just talking about single family.
Single family. Yeah.
Normally 550 to 600. Back when the city got down really low, it got down to just under 300. Okay. And that's kind of where it's at now. It's back around 300 when we normally should be around 500. So we're seeing inventories 50% lower than we usually do, even in our area.
Well, there you go. Two different sides of the coast. Inventory is low and getting lower. And I don't know if you can quickly look and see what your pendings are, but again, the pendings are the number that surprised me. Pendings in my market are up 47.5%, almost 50%. And if your pendings are up that big and your inventory is low, dude, you're talking days of inventory, not weeks or months.
So so there's 284 pending in the county with, what did I say?
You said 300.
With 335 active.
So that's
And
like
then in our
5 weeks
county,
of inventory.
right now in the city, there are 56 active and 104 pending. So go
Oh,
figure.
Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
104 pending and 56 active. Okay.
Yep.
That, you know what that is? That is the mother of all bidding wars. And we are going to have price
Mm-hmm.
increases.
Mm-hmm.
That's what that means, right?
The question is, how far will people go? Because we're not seeing them. There is a threshold. You're seeing, even with bidding wars, you're seeing a threshold where people just they stop at a certain point.
But again, where are the freaking listings? Right. If I was a real estate agent and there was 56 active and 104 pending, I would be paying people to call. Are you thinking about selling? Are you thinking about selling? Are you thinking about selling?
Yeah.
Go
And
get
they're
some
all hearing
listing.
it. So the sellers are all hearing it because the agents are doing that. I mean,
Man.
agents are on it, man. And, they're mailing, they're calling, they're like, I need listings. Please sell your house now. People are like, it would be interesting to get, understand from the agents. And I haven't asked this question. So if there's real estate agents watching this, put in the comments,
Yeah.
why are the sellers not selling? That's what we need to know. What's going on? What is the reason? Are they not moving because of jobs? Is it the virus? Is it, what is it? What's going on with people not selling? So I don't know what it is.
Yeah. So
It's got to be that.
It's got to be fear, because it's either one or the other. You would not sell or not list for two reasons. One, you think you get a better price in a few months, which nobody,
Mm-hmm.
at least before today, nobody would think, right? Nobody's think you're going to get a higher price in a pandemic. But now you and I'm going to be putting this out there every day until it's not true. It's awesome. Why list today? I'll get a better price tomorrow. Right? It's freaking crazy. Or you're afraid.
Now's the time to list. Now
Yeah.
is the time to list. And again, now this is the thing for everybody watching. I've said it over and over and over. It's more important to know the top than it is the bottom.
Amen.
What did we see in the market last week? We hit a peak. We hit the top. And, I've said it before, we're going to see Dow 15 before we see Dow 30. We got close to Dow 30,
Yeah.
and I could be wrong because, that's based on nothing. I'm not a stock market guy, but just intuition, right? Just knowing and watching the economy, the fundamentals, the intuition. It's all an overinflated, game of free money that's being played by the hedge funds. They're calling each other up, hey, Michael, I'm going to short X today. Why don't you go long? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're going back and forth.
Oh yeah.
That's what's going on.
Yeah. So again, prices,
buying and selling from each other.
Yeah. Yeah. Again, it's fear and greed. I mean, those are the only, if you're a homeowner and you're an owner occupant, you're not even an investor like us, right? You don't have dozens of homes, right? You have one. You don't list for two reasons. One is I'm going to be greedy because I'll get a better price next month. Or two, I'm afraid for some reason. And we are clearly on the afraid side. And I don't see any reason to stop that. I don't see that changing, right? All these daily reports about spikes in this and spikes in that,
Mm-hmm.
and jobs in this and jobs in that. The more and more we talk about this, the more and more convinced we are going to be artificially low on inventory all year.
Yeah.
All year.
Until we get through this. Yeah. Until we get through this. And that's what it's got to be. Now, I have some neighbors that, have been trying to sell, and they're selling a product that has been selling well in the neighborhood. And, they're wanting to move so that it's not stopping them, but they're not getting any showings. So with record low inventory, they're not even getting any showings, So it's kind of interesting. You have all these pendings way up, you have inventory way down, but they're not getting any traffic in a product that should be getting traffic. So it just doesn't make any sense.
Is it a jumbo product? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, in our market, yeah, it is. It's like 450, 475, maybe 500, something like that.
Yeah, we're seeing, at least in my market, a clear delineation at the jumbo loan limit, right? If you have product that's above that in my market, and again, my market's Fresno, California. That market, even though I talk generically about total listings, that is the one market that is days on market is expanding, right? There's no interest. But if you're in the lower end product, not lower end, sub jumbo, it's flying off the shelf.
Yeah. And, I'm in, so DC, I'm real close to Washington, DC, one of the hottest housing markets in the country. Same metrics up there. Richmond, Virginia, our state capital, same metrics there. Hampton Roads area, military, same conditions there. And then also a resort rental area, the Outer Banks of North Carolina, summer vacation home, short-term vacation rental market. That's the one that I'm really interested in watching to see what happens there in terms of the market with the loss of income in the short-term rental season this year.
Yeah.
I'm wondering how many people are going to want to sell as we get to the fall, because they're going to collect their money now through the summer.
Sure.
And then I got a feeling there's going to be a lot of properties coming on the market there this fall.
Yeah,
They
again,
don't want to go through another situation like that.
no, yeah, the whole Airbnb, summertime rental, springtime rental, whatever. It's going to be interesting. But yeah, the more and more I talk about this again, Benny Clay, thank you for sending me that report. We're going to talk later in the week. It just makes me, again, it's when you look at your market every day, your opinion can change. And a month ago, 6 weeks ago, I was like, price is flat, probably down. Now I'm like, I see no reasons for listings to increase. And if listings don't increase, prices will go up. They just have to. Even in a world of double-digit unemployment, it hurts my head to think about. But I mean, some markets could see double-digit increase.
Well, yeah, and again, the whole forbearance,
Yep.
applications or assistance down,
Mm-hmm.
record lows. So people are not asking for that.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting thing going on in a lot of these areas is eviction moratoriums,
Yep.
permanent eviction moratoriums that they're passing legislation on in cities and
Yep.
counties and stuff. Very interesting. So people aren't being forced out of their houses if they're not paying. They're being given unprecedented amount of time. So, all the people that we're talking about, it's going to be the greatest buying opportunity we've ever seen. It just isn't, because there is no motivation. People don't have to move. They're not being forced to move. The banks are working with people. So this is what should have happened in 2009. They should have taken this approach in 2009, and it would have saved a lot of pain and a lot of people. But it's a very different environment, very different climate. And, it's interesting. It makes me want to just like do a poll and find out, what people's plans are that we're going to, were you going to move? Why aren't you moving? What's going on?
Yeah.
Just to see what's happening out there.
Yeah, this has been a wonderful conversation because, again, with these expert conversation, folks, we have no idea where we're going with these. We just start with a topic and roll. I am more convinced now than 45 minutes ago that prices for single family homes below jumbo, so let's be clear, right, below jumbo, are going to be up this year in most markets. I don't know about you, but what do you think after looking at it?
Yeah, definitely in the lower end market, because with interest rates where they are now, for anybody who wants to own a home, it makes 0 cents to rent now. Because even with taxes, insurance, maintenance, now you're still probably cheaper than what you're going to pay in rent to own something. And even if you don't build equity, because they're not going to go up forever, rates will go back up at some point potentially, and all that'll balance out. But you're building equity. So if nothing else, you're paying down principal and building equity. So there's gonna be a lot of people moving towards that, but. I mean, right now, as long as rates are low and as long as inventory is low, prices are going to keep going up and staying up. But that can change very quickly, as we've seen everything else in this world the last 2 months,
Yeah. The other thing I'll add on there is we've also learned in this environment that space is good. Hence, we are seeing again, I believe something that is not being said out there in the commercial apartment sector is Class A is going to get hit harder than other times, right? There's always been this Class A does best in a recession because they have the most financial reserves, blah, 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 blah. True. This time is different. We are learning now that space is good. Your home office, your gym, your daycare is all in the same spot. Do you want to do that in a 1,000-foot apartment or a 14 or 15 or 2,000 square foot house with a front and backyard? Space is good. So that's just more demand on housing. Again, demand is spiking. There's no motivation to sell. Prices are going to go up. It just feels so crazy to say in a world of double-digit unemployment. So thank you very much for your time. This has been so much fun. And this is crazy times.
It is. Live data feed coming in as we speak. So.
There you go.